Hi everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a good Monday and are ready to keep working this week on factoring trinomials. Again, my contact information is at the top of the screen if you need it. Please feel free to reach out. Any questions, anything I can help you with at this time. I know it's really crazy. I know there's a lot going on. I know we're adjusting to a lot of different things. So if there's something you need, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out in any of those ways. As you see in our calendar today for the 14th, we are going to be continuing to talk about how to factor trinomials. And we're going to work on our part 1 assignment that's due today. We see that little gold star that tells us we have a graded assignment that needs to be emailed to me today. So let's take a little sneak preview at what is due. Part 1 assignment is due today by the end of the day. Yesterday, we looked at we looked at 2 examples, not a whole bunch, but 2 examples of problems that look a lot like number 2, 4, and 6 on your assignment, where we needed to use that snowflake method to factor and break down our polynomials. Today we're going to focus, and that's why my gold star is on the right side, on problems that look a lot like 12, 14, and 16. We're going to do an example that looks like 12 and 14 and an example that looks like number 16 today, so that you are good to go to complete your assignment. When you are done with your work, please make sure you take a picture and email it to me. My email address is here for you if you need it. If I don't get an email though, I won't be able to grade it. And as those of you that turned in your work last week saw, I am entering grades and entering zeros for those of you who aren't turning things in. So please make sure you get stuff turned in so that I can keep up with your grades and you have great grades to start off the 4th quarter. So yesterday we did example 1 and 2. I would keep out your notes page that we were working with yesterday. That's why I kept going with example number 3 today. I don't need you to rewrite out these steps that we talked about, but these are things that we're going to think about and continue on with our 2 examples for today. Working on that snowflake method a little bit more. The problems are going to look the same, except now instead of having all addition in our trinomials, we're going to see some subtraction signs, which doesn't change the process, but it might make it a little harder to think through. So I wanted to make sure we worked through some examples. So step 1, we're going to follow our 3 steps just the same as we did yesterday. Step 1 has us fill out our snowflake. So we're going to go ahead and do that the same way we did yesterday. And I'm going to go and put my A's in their place. So I'm putting the A in the side of the snowflake and then in the top. I'm going to put my B, my 7, in the bottom. And I know my C is here, a negative 30. So I have 1 times negative 30, which gives me a negative 30. Okay, so I've done step 1, check, taken care of. Step 2 is to build a factor tree for the top part of our snowflake. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do step 2. I'm going to think about my factor tree that needs to be made out of my negative 30. So I'm thinking about what numbers multiply to give me negative 30. I think it's easier to do this without the negative. So what numbers multiply to 30? Well, we have 1 and 30. I have 2 and 15. I know 3 times 10 gives us 30. 4 doesn't work, but 5 does work. So I have 5 and 6. Okay, so I built my factor tree. If we need a little reminder for ourselves, this is my factor tree, and I'll even draw us a little picture there so we don't forget that this is our factor tree. Ooh, that's a scary looking tree. Sorry, y'all. Now I'm going to move on to step 3, where I use that factor tree to fill in the rest of my snowflake. So I need to remember, I am thinking about what numbers now are going to add together. I'm going to make a nice obnoxious note of this down here at the bottom. What numbers add to give us 7? Okay, we're thinking about addition when we're filling in this factor tree at the bottom. So I'm also going to draw for myself a nice obnoxious addition sign here over my number 7. Okay, so I'm thinking about what numbers add to give us that 7. Okay. In my factor tree, when I look at my different options and my different numbers, I see that 1 and 30 are never going to add together to give us 7. 2 and 15 don't. I know 5 and 6 don't. But what I do see is my factors 3 and 10. If I make one of my numbers positive, if I have a positive 10, and my other number negative, if I have 10 and negative 3, I know that 10 plus a negative 3 gives me 7, so I have found the factors that work. So our process here is exactly the same, but we're going to have to pay attention to those negative numbers now. So my factors now, my factored answer is going to be x, the 1x, because we don't want to forget that our number on the top matches our x, plus 10 times our 1x, and now we just need to be careful not to forget this, minus 3. So our solution is there on the bottom for example number 3. Let's go on to our last example for today so we can wrap up our first part of factoring with example number 4. I'm going to go ahead, follow my first step, and fill out my snowflake. And my A, I know, is that invisible 1 here, just like always. So I'm going to fill in my 1 in my snowflake in the top as well. My B is a negative 12. Don't forget those negative signs as we're filling in the snowflake. And my C is a negative 64. So I know that my A times my C is going to go ahead and leave me with a negative 64 when I do that multiplication. I've done step 1, good to go. Now I can go ahead and do step 2 to build that factor tree for the top part of my snowflake. My top snowflake is the negative 64, so I want to think what numbers are going to multiply to give me 64. So I know we have 1 and 64, 2 and 32 multiply to give me 64. 3 doesn't work, but I know that 4 and 16 will multiply. 5 doesn't work. I know that 8 times 8 is going to give me 64. I might have skipped some in the middle, but I can actually go ahead and stop here, and that's because for part 3, I need to think about using that factor tree to fill in the rest of the snowflake. So I am looking for now the numbers that add together to give me that negative 12, that bottom part of our tree, so of our snowflake, sorry. We've done the top, now we need to deal with the bottom. So what numbers now from our factor tree can add together to give us this negative 12? Well, I know 1 and 64 don't work. I know 2 and 32 don't work. 8 plus 8 in any way is never going to give me 64, but I see that I have this 4 and 16, and those are important because if I make one of them positive, I'm going to just put them into my spot in the snowflake first. 4 or 16, if I keep one of them positive and one of them negative, I know I can get to that negative 12 because I do know that 16 minus 4 gives me a positive 12. So when I think this through, if I make the 4 negative, I would do negative 4 plus 16, which is going to give me a positive 12. So that's not what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase that one. But if I make this a negative, 4 plus, because remember there's an addition sign here, 4 plus a negative 16 is going to give me a negative 12. So I have found where that negative sign should go. I now have my solutions, I remind myself, inside of my snowflake here, with my x being on the top and my number being on the bottom. So I can go ahead and fill out my solution in my parentheses, which is 1x plus 4 and 1x minus, not forgetting that subtraction sign, 16. This is one last reminder. After you have your assignment done for today, please make sure you take a picture of your work and you send an email to me. You are also welcome, if it's easier, to send me a text on my Google Voice number. I will add that to the bottom here. It is 317-620-1670. If it's easier for you to go ahead and send me an email, if it's easier for you to go ahead and send me a text with a picture, whichever works is fine by me. Regardless of what you choose, please make sure this is done and good to go by the end of today so we can move on to our next assignment tomorrow. Reach out if you need anything. Otherwise, have a great day, everybody.